Alright, welcome back guys. I am in a very special place today. It's basically a giant aviation marvel of a location, but it's also great for nature because it has very natural and historical aspects about it from history. As you can tell from the title, I am here at Huffman Prairie Flying Field, and it's a pretty measly 84 acres, but that 84 acres is no slouch. It has some gorgeous different prairie habitat and wet meadow. This is quite essentially where aviation started with the Wright brothers. They made their first contraptions out of just different metal and machinery that they had and spare parts from their bicycle shop here in Dayton. And this is where they made the Wright Flyer and successfully flew it. Well, technically they successfully flew it in the Carolinas, but they built it here, so in my opinion this is the real birthplace of aviation. But as much as I like local history and just other kind of natural history, like I said, we're going to focus more on obviously the nature and the wildlife aspect. But so it's a very, very hot day since we're kind of in the middle, almost the peak of summer, and the temperature, I think the heat index is about 105 degrees. So I'm dressing really light. I got my nice big fisherman's cap here, and the sun keeps breaking through the clouds every now and then, but when it kind of is behind there, we have some more cloud cover, it kind of not so much cools up a bit, but it does kind of, you know, it definitely helps it, and I notice the difference. But yeah, very hot day out here in the prairie. So we're going to take it nice and slow and just, you know, patiently look for birds. So let's get started, guys. Alright, so I made it to the entrance of the prairie over here, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually kind of excited. It's a pretty small place, but it's just got jam-packed. It's probably one of the best examples of prairie habitat in pretty much all of Ohio. Checking out the little kind of message board or whatever, the information kiosk over here, and it was showing different kinds of grassland birds. Some of them are kind of on the less common side, but they're very commonly found here, like dick sissel, bobolink, various other kinds of sparrows. Even showed a green grassland snake and a 13-line ground squirrel, which is really cool. And so far I've been also seeing a lot of ruby-throated hummingbirds. It's the only hummingbird we have here in Ohio, and been seeing them flying around. I keep hearing the little buzzing, squeaky call that they make. And I've already seen eastern cottontail, which I took a few photos of. So I think it's gonna be a very good evening, and I'm hoping as well, if we have time, just if there'd be a gorgeous sunset, just because of this wide open space. I didn't realize how wide open it was here, but yeah, it's definitely got a nice view of the sunset, I believe. So we're just gonna get started here and take some photos. Alright, I've been seeing lots of different kinds of birds. I saw a indigo bunting kind of floating around out in the open field over here. But immediately after, you know, a few feet entering in the prairie here, I started hearing the call of a common yellowthroat, which is a type of warbler that stays in this part of Ohio throughout summer, fortunately. And its call is kind of, if you want to make a mnemonic out of it, it's kind of wishity, wishity, wishity. Just trying a little different technique that certain, I know, bird photographers use, is they do what's called pishing. And you basically make this sound and you just kind of repeat it a handful of times, kind of like a bird call. And it apparently attracts different kinds of sparrows and other smaller songbirds, and kind of gets them out in the open, because they hear that and they kind of, I guess, mistake it for a call of their own, or they just, you know, they get curious and they want to come out of the prairie or whatever the grasslands are like here, and they want to see what, you know, all the commotion is about. But it's definitely something I noticed. The yellowthroats in particular seemed to be like onto me every time I did it. Kind of rose up on the tallest kind of different kind of plant or limb that they could find and perch there, and so that kind of got me some good shots here as well. It's a pretty easy technique. You just go psh, 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 and you just kind of do that a handful of times, wait a little bit, be real silent and quiet, and just listen for any responses, and more importantly hear any responses like that. And yeah, you just technique to try on and off, and So luckily this time I found it to be quite successful. The good thing is that through July through September, Huffman Prairie is at its peak bloom. It's what they call full bloom. So it means all different wildflowers are really just, that's like the window of opportunity really to just see all of them and photograph them, in my case. It's quite fortunate that I came here, at least my first real visit here, and I'm able to do that and see all these different kind of wildflowers. A lot of them I already know about and have photographed in other areas, but it's just still very fortunate to have this piece of natural history here, and be able to walk it and photograph it. Well, I'm going to keep wandering along the prairie here, and hopefully we get a lot more bird shots and maybe some flowers. And from the looks of it, a gorgeous sunset. So let's keep going, guys. Now, since Huffman here is considered a tall grass prairie, it's kind of difficult if you're really short. I'm kind of average height to actually shoot any of the birds that perch up on the very tallest parts of these plants over here. So I've been trying to, as I'm looking left and right, trying to find the lowest vantage point to really, so I can see them well enough when they, come up from all the grasses up to the top and start flying around. But it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I haven't, shot wildlife in a while, just because early summer is usually when migration, after that's over, you're kind of just left here in this part of Ohio with common songbirds. But there's enough different subjects here that I've never photographed before or have ever seen before, at least in my life list for birds, that this will keep me busy for the rest of the evening. So I'm still making my way around the prairie. It's about 3/4 of a mile loop trail, and I'm starting to approach kind of the other second side. Still been photographing different common yellowthroats that I've been seeing just kind of popping up here and there. Kind of looking at the wildflowers and thinking I might do something with that, maybe with some macro, and the time I have left, or the daylight really, because the sun's coming down pretty fast now. So yeah, it's been a gorgeous evening. Got a handful of different kind of shots here and there. And hopefully I get a handful more before I have to leave. Alright, I've been shooting a lot this evening. I've been getting a lot of different kinds of birds, like red-winged blackbirds, that have been perching and giving their calls out in the open. So I got a few shots of the males and actually a female as well, which is pretty nice because I never had a shot of them. By the nice golden light of the end of the day here, and there's just something about being in a prairie, at sunset, even in the morning especially too, because you get all the the mist, and it's kind of, especially in the fall, it's got a lot of frost and morning dew. But something about these nice summer evenings, just being in this prairie, and or any prairie for that matter, and just the calm wind. It's kind of hot and humid, but you get this nice gentle breeze. Makes photographing the wildflowers a little harder, a little trickier, but I mean it's just gorgeous, and just seeing the different yellows, purples, reds of all these different kinds of wildflowers and plants, just sprinkled. It just it's wild. I mean it's just literally stretches out, and Huffman Prairie is probably one of the best examples, like I said earlier, of just prairie habitat that's been fought for with legislation over its history. It was actually much bigger than this, But just over time with human development, mowing and burning, and just humans really, it just kind of dissolved for the most part until they realize that, you know, it's important, we need to protect it for the plant life, the wildlife, and plus it helps humanity really as well. As it said in the sign, it's 112 acres that are actually protected in this whole prairie space, but it used to be much bigger. But you know, I'll take this. You know, this is as good as it can get, and we can protect this under, you know, state and federal law, and that's pretty important. So anyways, I've also been shooting a lot of ICM photos. That's intentional camera motion, where I just kind of pan and tilt, or I can kind of flick with the wrist the camera and just create some really crazy effects. And I've been pointing my lens specifically at the different wildflowers and get some kind of different mixtures of all these colors. It almost feels like painting in a way, just with all these primary colors like red and yellow, and then you get purple and just different. And now of course all the green foliage that's kind of spread out amongst all those colors. So the results have been pretty nice with that. I've also been doing ones including the sky and clouds above, and shooting just kind of like straight across the horizon line. And I think those shots worked out as well, pretty well. Other than that, the sunset looked like it's going to be really something special. So I might set up for a sunset with maybe the prairie in the foreground, and then just have the sun dropping out way in the background against the horizon line, and the tree line over here where it's at. It could just be a single static shot, or it could do a panorama. So got about half an hour left, and yeah, almost done making my way around the prairie once, and then we'll find maybe a potential sunset shot. So we'll see. Alright, got some really exciting shots now of a new species, well, at least new species for me to kind of attempt to photograph. It's been one I'm looking forward to, and I mentioned it earlier, but it's the ruby-throated hummingbird. And I got this beautiful couple of shots here of this female one, and the female one doesn't have the ruby throat. It gets its namesake from. The males are the only one that has it. But this female is perched amongst all these different wildflowers over to my side here, and it was fairly up close, but I still had to zoom in all the way at 600 millimeters with my big telephoto lens here. So for settings, I got 500th of a second, f6.3, and ISO 1000, because it's getting a little darker and darker over here as the sun's starting to, it's just now starting to creep lower below the tree line here. Sorry, I'm really tired. But going back to this hummingbird shot, I think it's just really beautiful because that 6.3 just really makes that shallow depth of field. It looks like the hummingbird's tack sharp, and it's also perched, which is pretty cool to see as well. I just got a few seconds before it started flying away again that I could take a picture of it. So really excited about that. So I took a simple sunset shot, HDR image, high dynamic range. I bracketed 3 times just to get the nice beautiful sunset sky as it kind of falls below the tree line right behind me. And then I also exposed for the foreground wildflowers that kind of just add that little bit of visual anchor. So you get the wildflowers and just in this wide angle 24 millimeter view, and then you get just the gorgeous sunset sky behind it. And so I think it turned out pretty well. Maybe eventually I'd like to do a panorama here. Once I now that I've been here and I kind of can pre-visualize, I guess, the location better. Like I said, like I've always said, really, is in future visits when you come back to these same places, if you do, you'll have better knowledge of what to look for and all that. So for the bracketed image, I think I kept my settings about ISO 1600, and I think it was f16 for an aperture, and then I just varied my shutter speed pretty wildly in this case, pretty varied, so I can get a nice even exposure when I bracket and compile all the images later on the computer. So yeah, for my first visit, this has been a very amazing place. This is definitely one of the, honestly, and from what I've seen so far, one of the best examples of a prairie habitat or a wet meadow habitat, at least in Ohio. Of all the places I explored, this is one I'll be going back to, especially in the summertime. Alright guys, that pretty much is the end of the day here, unfortunately, but I did see a variety of different plant and wildlife. It's been very successful, I think. I got a lot of great photos. Saw a couple new bird species like common yellowthroat that are pretty common in the grasslands and wet meadows and prairies like this, tall grass prairies. And yeah, it's just been a very successful day. So if you're ever in the Dayton area and you like nature, of course, like probably because you're watching this, highly recommend that you go out to Huffman Prairie. It's a very, very good place, I think, and it would definitely be warranting a lot of repeat visits from me personally. But this is the end of today, so thank you so much for watching, guys. Yep, this has been Huffman Prairie, and make sure to get out here, or get out there, or get out anywhere. Thanks, guys.